everybody. You're here with me, your host, Renee, and I'm here today with Motex Sanchez, the creator of 209 Times. And we're going to jump into a little bit of tea about what's going on with the LA Times. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've recently had to go to battle with the LA Times and on a organization level as well as a personal level. And I've had to, most recently, myself and a few of our team went down to Los Angeles to go basically knock on the front door of the LA Times headquarters and ask to speak to their owner and a reporter who's working on a quote-unquote story about myself on a personal level. But we've had some disagreements also on some professional levels as well. Essentially, they were admitting to publishing false news about myself and my organization, while at the very same time they were accusing us of publishing false news. So it's something that's been playing out a little bit, and we've had a lot of people rooting for us. Most recently, I've had them capitulate to my demand for retraction to correct a story that they published about me in August of this year, essentially publishing false information, making false claims about my character.
And how did all this get started?
So really all of this got started with, believe it or not, when our former mayor here in Stockton lost by double digits. Michael Tubbs was trying to build himself up to be some career politician, and the people of Stockton decided that they did not approve of it, right? So he was exploiting the city, and the people responded in kind. And when he lost his election, or before it was even finalized, the Los Angeles Times contacted myself and a few members of our organization, did an interview, and really gave us credit / blamed us for the outcome of that election. So they labeled us as the King Slayer and the Kingmaker of San Joaquin County, as far as elected officials and having influence over elections. And that was pretty much followed up by a year later. They're still crying about it, and Michael Tubbs is still crying about losing, blaming us, and instead of taking accountability for his own leadership or lack thereof, they've been trying to portray us as kind of like fooling the community or publishing fake news about him to make it seem like he got a bad rap, like he was not responsible for the decisions that he made or the time that he had. People forget he was in office for 8 years here in Stockton, and so they started attacking us. Pretty much we feel to give him cover because he moved to Los Angeles.
So now when you say a year later, so this is recent that this has happened?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So the election was in November of 2020, and then they randomly published a story about Motex Sanchez and 209 Times in August of 2021. So almost a year later, they're still kind of digging around, looking for, I don't know what they think they're looking for with my employers, with former people, I worked for or knew. And it's kind of clear on my end what I think their motivation is. And I think it's because Tubbs moved to Los Angeles. I think they're trying to provide a cover story for their readers when they come out and want to endorse him or support him when he runs for an office in Los Angeles. People are going to have questions and say, well, why is he here when he just lost in the city that he came from? And I think they're trying to provide a cover story to say, well, it wasn't by fault of his own. It was because this individual and these villains and this organization just kind of set him up for a downfall. But that's clearly not the truth for anybody that lives here in Stockton. They know better than that.
So it sounds like somebody out there is in support of Tubbs.
Yeah, and then in the process of that, you would think like, okay, let him stand on his own feet. If he wants to move to Los Angeles, he has every right to do that. Let him go on his own merits. But instead of trying to do that or explore his failures in Stockton in elected office and learn from that, they're instead trying to support him by attacking myself on a personal level and our organization. And of all things, they try to portray they try to put us really in the same context of this greater debate that is happening in America when it comes to really the election between Trump and Hillary and even Biden. So this is a much bigger beef than Stockton and 209 Times versus LA Times. This is really about the state of media in America. It's about who controls the narrative, who controls information, and they're trying to put us in the context of like some right-wing conspiracy that was funded by millions of dollars when, that is clearly not the case here in Stockton or with our organization. But they even went so far as to try to portray me as being right-wing when I was an elected Bernie Sanders delegate. Not exactly a right-wing resume, right? I'm a delegate for the Democratic Party, have been for several years, been a Democrat since I was 18 years old. I'm involved in so many, so much experience here over, been an activist since I was 17 years old in high school, and have led many charges, including police reform, including opening of closed down libraries in East Stockton, and just a whole host of other things. And so, like I said, not exactly the resume of a right-winger.
Right. It makes you wonder, where did they get that?
Yeah.
What facts backed their thought to call you right-wing?
They clearly didn't speak to me or anybody that knew me. So it tells me that who gave him that impression was somebody that was partial and that was politically motivated, because whether it's Tubbs or his supporters, it's easier to make an excuse and say, oh, well, it's not that I lost because of A, B, C, and D. It's because, this guy right here, he's just part of some right-wing conspiracy, and they're just trying to fool everybody. They lied on my name, et cetera, et cetera. But there's just not the reality, and it's not the truth. And so, this is really about the future of media in America, with newspapers disappearing on a daily basis. I've created something that is revolutionary and that is bringing news and information to the masses in a way that really, without any funding, as what they're trying to accuse us of, and has really revolutionized and crowdsourced news and information in a way that they say it has not been seen before in the whole country. So I think they're also a little bit scared that it has the potential to spread to other cities and really disrupt their entire industry.
Now, how did you find out that they had written about you and 209 Times?
Yeah, so I have people, I have people that send me the links and say, oh man, check this out. Did you read this? And I read it, and it was like, okay, well, these people clearly didn't talk to me. Mm-hmm. And ironically, they talk about their journalistic standards, and they say, well, as part of journalistic standards, you're supposed to get both sides of the story. Yeah. And that's not something that they do. So they're not respectable journalists. So in accusing us of that, I had to point out to them, I said, well, you guys never reached out to me for a comment, but you included quotes by Tubbs basically trying to portray me in that light. But you never asked me, because I would have told you I'm this, and that. Mm-hmm. And you could have had a chance to look at my resume and really what my true background is here in our community. And you would have seen that, okay, there's more to this story than what some failed politician is trying to portray.
Now, who did you have to speak to when you went out to LA? And you literally went out to LA.
Oh, yeah. Hey, LA Times, you're only a 5-hour drive away.
That's true.
It's not too far. So, I sent emails. I sent a letter to the editor, and they were not responding. But at the same time, I'm getting reports that they're sending information inquiries to, my employer and all kinds of other things, and trying to, I look at it from a perspective of somebody who's involved in media. I see what they're doing, and I know what their tactics are, because I've used the same tactics. They just get mad when we do it, but they do it on a regular, right? So they were not responding to messages or emails, and so I said, let's go knock on the front door, and let's go speak to their owner. If they're reaching out to me as the owner, then I want to talk to their owner. Don't send me some reporter. I'm not going to go talk to your reporter. You're not asking to speak to my reporters, you think you can approach me as the owner, then I want to talk to your owner. So they were not available that day. Surprisingly.
But you ended up getting in touch with them, and you did get them to retract.
They did follow up with an email shortly after saying, "Oh, we just saw your email from 2.5 months ago. We apologize. It was in the spam box, or I didn't have Wi-Fi service," or they came up with some excuses.
I have to roll my eyes. Everybody has Wi-Fi.
It was a solar flare, and it was down that day, or whatever the excuses they came up with. The bottom line is, it prompted a response, and that's the thing that you have to ask yourself and imagine when we're talking about, media in America right now, is how many people have they done this to that would have just laid down and taken it, right? Mm-hmm. That don't have the agency or the capacity or the know-how to push back and force a situation to say, you guys published false information about me. You had the whole country thinking that I was this, and that. Had my own peers trying to, look at me in a different light when it was not based in fact, and so many people would have just taken it. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we had to take a stand against, not just for myself on a personal level, but really for, ironically, the industry, right? Because we're not even trying to be journalists. We're not trying to be like, the LA Times. We're not trying to be none of that. And we find ourselves, ironically, having a better connection in the community, focusing on stories that are more relevant to the community than what mainstream media is able to do. And I think that's part of what they're trying to, rather than self-reflect on that and those nuances and that failure, they're trying to bash us and put us in a negative light. Mm-hmm. And that's something I think really should be a concern for and part of the debate of what's going on for journalism and media in America.
So when you say that 209 Times, you speak as a collective, mm-hmm. not journalists, how would you identify or describe your collective staff?
Well, we're very diverse. We come from various backgrounds, ethnic background, gender, sexual orientation, religious backgrounds, political ends of the political spectrum. But what we all have in common and share is that we all want to see our community do better. Mm-hmm. And by our community, I don't just mean Stockton, but right. I mean the area, because not everybody is from Stockton. Right. That is part of our team. And all of us have that in common. So we're issue-based. We focus on the issues. We don't play partisan politics. We don't try to be liberal or conservative. We try to just focus on the issues.
Be inclusive.
Yes, and the thing is, you could be a conservative, right-wing,
a libertarian,
Republican, a libertarian, a Green Party.
And you're all in the 209.
You could be a progressive, revolutionary-minded, whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if there's a park that is not meeting the needs of the community, all of us should be able to agree on that a park should be safe for families to go to and take their children to. So if the playground is run down, if there's used drug needles laying in the park, if there's transients camping and taking over the facilities, or the bathrooms are not clean, or that's something that everybody in the community should agree on, regardless of your political persuasion. So we focus on fixing that park, to use as a symbol of the greater issue of how we function and operate.
Mm-hmm. Now, 209 Times, covering 209, and 209 spans multiple counties. Mm-hmm. Do you just focus on San Joaquin County, or do you focus on all the counties that are within the 209 area?
Yeah, so we want to eventually have a stronghold in covering the entire 209 region. Right now, our greatest influence and frequency of coverage is San Joaquin, because that's where most of us are from, and that's where, just Stockton alone always has something going on. Yeah. So we're never at a lacking in coverage for our city, but we know there's a lot of things going on in Modesto and Merced and Turlock and other places that, as we build up our capacity and our infrastructure, then we're going to be able to give more equal time to those other communities that we know are facing similar circumstances and challenges. And I came up with the name of 209 Times and really the concept because we're in between Sacramento and the Bay Area, and I feel that our circumstances are uniquely different from those two regions. But at the same time, throughout the whole Central Valley, we share a lot of commonalities, from Lodi down to Merced, and that's really our focus area.
Sounds good that you're getting the growth and the expansion and being in a niche, in the sense that it's something new and created that kind of does rival journalism, and so what they are bringing. So when you've gone down, 209 Times is taking on LA Times just to make sure that they are fact checking and actually running real source information and not being allowed to slander others and or other entities. Why do you feel that that's, and we all know it's very important, but why do the citizens need to know why that's important?
Well, I think it's important because, like I said, it really involves the bigger picture of media in America. You have corporate conglomerates that have, really a stranglehold and a monopoly on media in America and how things are portrayed, how things are not portrayed. What is a story that is told? What is a story that is not told? And, as being a veteran who was called to active duty and deployed overseas for Operation Iraqi Freedom, you can have it to where a war is entered into based on lies that the media fed to the American public that were hand fed to them by politicians with an agenda. And so that is where it really becomes a real danger and a real threat. So I think it is important for communities to have more local control on their local media as it used to be. But now all of these organizations around the whole nation are being bought up, including here locally with the Record. And it's more important for the community to have a say in the stories that they feel are being told and not told, and what is important to the community, instead of something being kind of just passed down from some corporate entities at the top and it's just regurgitated amongst their affiliates throughout the nation. So it really does concern the future of journalism in America, and that's not really why we got started, but it's kind of what it's turning out to be. So it is important for people to know what the truth is. And like I said, if they were allowed to do that to me in the position that I'm in, imagine how many other people that they could just roll over that would not fight back. It's important for people to fight back and to stand up for their rights.
What would you recommend to the citizens out there who may question what they are reading? What kind of advice or suggestions would you give to them?
I would say always question what you're reading, not just even from us, right? From everybody, from the SAC-B, from the USA Today, from a society that produces critical thinkers is going to be better for everybody, and citizens that are more engaged, that don't just rely on people with titles or people in positions of authority or politicians especially, or influencers to dictate where we go as a society. It's always better for citizens to be educated and more engaged, and that's something that always question what you read.
Well, that's the tea from the 209 Times. We're here with Motek Sanchez, the creator of 209 Times. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of the 209 Times and its expansion.
And now in Sacramento, and as a favor to Los Angeles Times, we're now in Los Angeles.
Well, I think that's great. It's good to see straight out of Stockton what's growing all over California now, but I'm sure it may become nationwide. I can see something like that happening.
Time will tell.